Once upon a time, two boys grew up playing hockey in the village of Terrace, British Columbia. One of them went on to play in the National Hockey League. The other became a comedian. Now, one flies planes and coaches youth hockey. The other is still a comedian and owns new skates. This is their podcast, Enjoying Orange Slices with Jeff and Ian.
Hello, Jeff. My name is Ian Bagg. The show is called Enjoying Orange Slices. Rated number one by two of the most popular hosts on. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just like, I seen this podcast about hockey get in trouble for chirping Line A the other day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because they've created this whole thing where people get attention by saying the most outrageous things. And then when they get too outrageous, they get upset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was stupid what was said, but at the same time, I'm like, it's not really the worst thing I've ever heard. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, people are going to be offended by that. And you got to deal with the fallout from it. We don't really get that far, but I don't think you can complain about what you've created. Does that make sense?
Well, if you're going to go and if you're going to go with an edge, right? It's the old double-edged sword.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
It's just as sharp on the other side. So be careful. And I don't know. I mean, we're too busy being inaccurate and generally lighthearted.
We're too busy giving you the wrong information about what's
That's right. We're fact checking ourselves, and they're like, "Yeah, that was incorrect." So, I think we talked about a guy I think that you really like, and I like the other day, who has an edge, but he can just kind of round that edge off a little bit when he talks. Is McAfee? McAfee does a really good job, I think, rounding off the edges, but he still offends people. I do think you have to be careful, and not what you say, it's how you say it. But if you're going to use certain words, then you gotta.
You know what the difference is? He tries to be funny, but he doesn't go at people personally, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he goes at them on the field. But he doesn't talk about what's going on. Underneath the numbers is a human, and you got to remember that it's a human. Society's created this thing on the internet called trolls, and those people go after people personally. And this show, and I don't know anything about it, never heard it before, seems like it's a little bit of just trolls hanging with trolls. So I just think. And the funny part about that whole player assistance program is you don't know why he's in there. You don't know what the reason is for he's in there. He just might have been drowning and needed a little bit of a breather, right? Just a life jacket thrown to him, which is what was sent to him. So instead of drinking overtime or just not being able to get his mind in the game. I didn't know that Lane's dad had passed away in the last couple of years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think there's, a struggle off the ice that he's trying to deal with, which is good that he's doing,
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you go back to the players assistance program, the first person that you're hearing a lot more about it now, about players entering it, getting the help they need. But Carey Price was kind of the first, over the last year or two, couple years, he was a huge name that said, "Hey, I need to get it, I need to take some time and figure some stuff out." And I think you're seeing more players get into the program, and I think it's great. That's what it's there for. If you can't find answers on your own, or you're struggling to process things, that program is there for players in the NHL to take advantage of and get themselves right or turned around or get some answers. And so that's, I look back now and I kind of think there's been other players in the program, but I think back to Carey Price was maybe the turning point where people are like, "Hey, yeah, we
look at our buddy Corey in writing that article in the Tribune. Was it the Tribune that he wrote it in? That's one of the turning points too, is somebody actually saying something. So right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, for sure. And now Hershey is he's on with Hockey Canada, and he's got things headed in the right direction. I still think Hershey's would be unbelievable on TV. I think he's phenomenal on TV. He does a great job. Um, he did a great job with Brendan Batchelor there in Vancouver on the radio. Does a great job on TV. Now he's helping with Hockey Canada, which isn't going to be as much TV time or hardly any at all. But I think where he can help is obviously bringing in some mental health resources to Hockey Canada and maybe some education along the way.
he might be able to give that some eyes to the teams to be able to what to watch out for.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think so. And Hershey's kind of an open book, and we've both spent a lot of time with them, so I'm happy for him. And I really, we've kind of gone all over the place, but Hockey Canada, is going to get a reset whether they want it or not. And I think what I'll talk about right now is what I'd like to see Hockey Canada do at the grassroots, like in the minor hockey systems. And we've talked about this before, but Germany years ago, and I'm not saying they got it figured out, but with their soccer program, they kind of said, after a World Cup debacle, they said, we got to change the way we do business, the way we think of soccer in our country. And, I think there's a couple of different ways we can rethink about it in Canada and the US and other places. Obviously, US, it's a little bit not as established, but it's getting there as Canada. But we got to look at the way we train our kids, the way we teach our kids, and the way we interact with our kids. So, but I know Hershey's going to help in the one area, but I also think as Hockey Canada is working through all this, I think there's a message that's got to go out to the grassroots on how they want the game to grow and be perceived and operate in Canada. And that starts at youth hockey.
Yeah. And it's going to be tough to keep players in the Canadian program if you just drop them $11 million bill every once in a while.
Well, yeah. For those that don't know, John Tavares is in a little bit of a tiff with the Canadian government, CRA. We both know CRA well. They came after him for $11 million in back taxes, and he's fighting it. And I don't know. There seems to be a rule change there somewhere that maybe got misinterpreted or get added. But it's that's not going to help the Leafs. Go after
No.
any free
So if
agents.
you're trying to keep somebody, you're also trying to keep somebody because of that too. They're like, well, what about that? And then you can't even as a team go, oh, there was just a mistake on his part. He didn't do it. You have to say, yeah, they could come at you for $11 million later on. But you can imagine having an $11 million bill. Like, how much money did you make if you have an $11 million bill? Good for him.
Yeah, good for him is right. But I think like $1 million bill, it probably would have kept him up at night. But he makes 11 a season, right? So now he's got an $11 million bill. That's what he makes in a season, or roughly.
Basically,
11.
he's playing a season for free.
Yeah, that's a rough one, but oh well.
And you know who's laughing at it? New York Islanders fans are just cheering, "Pay the bill, pay the bill."
That's right. That's right. And they're trying to figure out what there's rumors that they want to move Tavares out of Toronto, but I'm not sure. He holds all the cards on the trading side. But as we know, when Uncle Sam or the Canadian government or any government comes after you for taxes, they kind of hold the cards. So we'll see how this plays out.
Let's stick with Toronto. Toronto's playing Ottawa. Ottawa is beating them, and Toronto pulls the goalie, thinking this might be the answer. If we get rid of the goalie, we don't need a goalie. That'll help us out. We'll be able to win this game. And Ottawa gets a breakaway. Guy gets 2 feet from the net and takes a slap shot at the net, right? So, first of all, if I had been doing that, I probably would have missed the net, right?
Well, and I thought, he really leaned into it.
Until
What
they
if,
leaned into us like, this is going crossbar.
what if he broke his stick and he it flubbed off to the side of the net? I laughed out loud.
Nobody's really talking about it. Like, nobody's really talking about what if it had gone wrong. Like, that would have been the best if it had gone wrong.
You know what? I think I laughed because I was watching the end of that game. So when he got the breakaway, and what was awesome is he skated it nonchalantly, like he was skating hard, but he didn't tip his hand until he got well inside the hash marks. And then he just wired it right about the top of the crease, the blue paint into the net. And I literally laughed out loud. I was like, I can't believe what I'm watching. And then all the shenanigans happened after. And this is kind of an interesting thing that Ridley Gregg is the kid's name. I played against his dad. His dad was a good player.
How was his shot?
Good. He was a sniper, right-handed shot forward, very good. And I look and I go, this is going to serve two purposes. First of all, you got Morgan Riley, you got a 5-game suspension for it. But what's going to come out of this is Ottawa is going to get some pub. They don't ever get any pub because they're sandwiched in between Toronto, Montreal, and they've been not very good this year. So they win against
not
Toronto.
very exciting.
Then they win the next game. Toronto, their star defenseman gets a 5-game suspension. They win the next game coming out. Like, it's created an unsettling environment in Toronto, which they reacted to very well the other night, or last night, I guess. And then in Ottawa, it gave them this kind of shot of adrenaline that they've been sorely lacking.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, the new owner in Ottawa, he said all the right things. I think he's trying to do all the right things. Finally, with 10 seconds or 5 seconds left in that game against the Leafs, and then the next game, the Senators have come alive. Like, they're kind of going here a little bit. They've been playing a little better lately, but I think this is the kind of thing that can benefit both teams, because Toronto gets picked on for not being committed enough, right? Especially in the defensive zone.
Yeah.
Well, they beat St. Louis 3-1 last night. That's pretty darn good, right? Or 4-1, whatever it was.
Like a rough and tumble team. Rough and tumble team.
They're not really known as, and so this might help them cement who they are. And this slapper is kind of, I mean, if you're on the Senators, you're laughing, you loved every minute of it, and you want to run with it. So
yeah, I think it works on both sides. I think Toronto goes, well, I guess that's the team that everybody sees us. They don't, like, we're a bunch of pussies, right? We can do whatever we want if we're winning against them. And then Riley says no, and it kind of it sends a different message to it. Do you think 5 games is a little much?
I thought 3 originally for sure. I thought that's a 3-game suspension. And then they had the in-person hearing. To me, the player review on suspensions is like the goal reviews, like goaltender interference.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't know what you're going to get, and
I thought it was a little high.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have that. I get it. There's a whole bunch.
It looked like he was hitting him in the back, right? And he just slid up and.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it a lot of different ways, but
is it Pronger? Is that who he has the meeting with? Pronger?
Peros.
Oh, is it Peros?
Yeah. So, and I don't know if is Pronger part of the NHL.
I thought Pronger was part of the NHL, like a thing, but
maybe.
Hey, I'm trying to get. There's a couple guys that work for the NHL out of San Jose came to the hockey game to my show the other night.
Well, there's probably more people at your show than the hockey games right now in San Jose.
Yeah, because there's no one going on, right? Because so they came and I talked to them. They listened to the pod. Trying to get them on, or trying to work it out and see if they can do it. But it would be to have some off ice officiating that work for the league, just to talk to them how they got into it and see what it's all about and see what their job is and kind of just pick their brain a bit. So I'm hoping those 2 fellas can come on the show and talk to us.
It's kind of funny you bring that up. And I was going to say you segued really nicely earlier. I'm going to segue again.
See that you like the
So,
car too.
huh? What's that?
You got the
I
white bar.
can't see it.
It's the
Oh,
path.
oh, dude. Oh, right on. Yeah, I get. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Oh, the path. That's right. I guess we're sponsoring them now. So I guess the segue is the off ice officials are seamless for the most part. 18,000 people in the building.
Right.
The only people that the fans even recognize out there that's part of the officiating crew are the refs and the linesmen, right? They're not thinking about the guys in the penalty box unless you see him on TV when the guy gets a penalty or the scorekeeper until the other night in Minnesota. You see where I'm going with this? Marc-Andre Fleury's 1,000th game as an NHL goaltender,
Very nice.
which was very good. The horn went off twice during a Pittsburgh power play, that's
I didn't see that.
Yeah. So then the off ice officials, cameras right on them, and you can see them going, I don't know what happened. So it didn't happen once; it happened twice near the end, I think, of the second period, and so it would be really interesting to talk to these
be a
guys.
problem with that? Did you turn out to be a problem with the clock? Was that what was
I
going
guess
on?
I
Or
don't know,
somebody
but
just leaning on the horn.
yeah, I think they were maybe someone spilled their coffee on the electric board and shorted it out. You
That's
don't
a
know.
very terrace move right there. That happened many, many times in
Oh
terrace.
yeah, who hasn't?
That big blue old thing that would just sit there. Boosh.
Oh yeah, if you that stuff, it's just like everything else in your car, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who hasn't spilled coffee in the car? It's the same thing. Those guys are having a coffee; they're all freezing down there, but they do a great job. The off ice officials in the NHL, but
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder, like, to have them on would be great. And then when something like that happened during Marc-Andre Fleury's 1,000th game in the NHL the other night,
Getting them to 1,001.
getting him to 1,001, what happens when something of the ordinary, like the clock malfunctions and goes off, and or they can't get the time right on the clock to go? Like, they're obviously keeping time by hand, but there could be some pretty stressful situations for those guys.
It would be interesting to talk, and I would like to just talk. What is how often is 0.1 of a second really that important? Have we gotten too far out of control because of replay? Like slow motion replay. Is that why we've gotten out of control with the time? Right.
Yeah. I think the games are moving faster now, right? I mean, years
Absolutely.
ago, you used to just go down in by second, not tenths of a second. So, and you have the camera and all the angles now. So, like, I'll give you an example. Last night, Tampa Bay and Boston. Tampa Bay, Chiarelli took a penalty in overtime. So went from 3-on-3 to 4-on-3, and the Bruins pulled their goalie to make it 5-on-3. And when he took the penalty, the clock ran down to 0.4 seconds. When they rejigged it again, it went to 2.6. They got the puck back to McAvoy, who got a shot off. So the tenth of a second, maybe not so much, but what's really been kind of changed the dynamic of the game is when you have the whistle blow and the clock stops, and then they add a second and a half or 2 seconds back on. That's a significant amount of time.
What if you made it like basketball? As long as the plays started, the time doesn't matter. Like, would that help out?
I don't know. I've always wondered about that. Like, there's a lot. Like, I'll give you an example. Vancouver and Washington. JT Miller scores in overtime to win it with 4 seconds the other night. Now, just think if when he released that puck, there was 1.4 seconds. Maybe no, he'd get to that. Maybe it was 0.4 seconds when it came off his stick, because in the NBA they go off your hand. Could you imagine if it was 0.4 seconds when that puck was released off his stick? By the time he traveled in the net or went into the net, the horn most likely would have gone off.
Absolutely.
and probably wouldn't have counted. So what you're saying is, and I've wondered about this too, if the play is in motion or the puck is in motion or in progress towards the net,
Right.
do you count it? The
If
only
the shot
difference
has
is
happened before the buzzer goes off and then the puck's moving towards the net, what do you count it?
the difference is I think it's cut and dried in the NBA. You can see it. Whereas in hockey, say you had a scrum and everybody's right on top of the crease and the guy pokes the puck. I think that's kind of why they keep it. It's like it's got to cross the goal line. That's the only way we can definitively tell. Because sometimes there's so much a mass of humanity in one area that I think that's why they're probably.
That's I'm gonna start yelling that every time there's a scrum in front of the net. Oh, the humanity!
Hey, you know what's kind of funny?
Oh, the mass of humanity!
The mass. I stole that from Razor, Daryl Ray. We gotta. Well, we're throwing names out there, and it's just you and me again this week.
I know.
We got to get Daryl Ray on. Razor goes way back. Played junior against him. He used Andy Moog used to have a golf tournament in Penticton every summer. Penticton, British Columbia, beautiful place. And Razor used to kind of just take that tournament over. He does the best Howie Meeker impersonation I've ever heard, but awesome. He is hilarious, and he's been with the Stars in Dallas, their color commentary guy for it's got to be 20, 25 years now. So, but that's the massive humanity. That's Razor. He's got all the $10 words. He's hilarious. I love listening to him. I listened to them last night as they played. They played Carolina, and they beat them. And Carolina is here on Saturday in the home of the Super Bowl and F1, Las Vegas, Nevada, and the Golden Knights. Yeah, so the Super Bowl was pretty fun too.
I know you don't watch South Park, but there's a thing in South Park that always makes me laugh whenever because they have the king and queen of Canada on South Park, and whenever they're doing something, they're doing a royal tradition, as is in tradition in Canada, and then they always go, "What a wonderful day for Canada, therefore the world."
That's awesome.
I love that. Therefore the world. Okay. Well, what we need to talk. Phil Kessel was at the hot dog cart, and somebody said, "Hey, do you want to play?" And he said, "Yes, I do." And boom, he's back in the league. He started training with, I think today he starts training with Abbotsford.
Yeah. So Vancouver brought him in. He's going to play. He's going to practice with Abbotsford, and so people that feel the thrill might know him. They loved him in Vegas last year. And Rick Tocchet and Phil
that's where you go back to it. That's where you go back to it. Everybody's from Pittsburgh, right? So that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
Do you think
that's true? Yeah.
Do you have them? Do you think you have him going in there just because he's been to the Stanley Cup playoffs so many times? You've got a young team. You're obviously going to the playoffs. Now you got a guy that calms down the dressing room, or is just, from what I hear, he's great in the dressing room, right? Everybody loves him in the dressing room, right? So
yeah, I think that's part of it. I think he's not only a character, he's a character guy. And Phil's been there and done that. He's taken the heat. He's been in Toronto, played in Boston. He's heard all about it. He's won 3 cups now, 2 in Pittsburgh, 1 in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
They loved him in Arizona when he was there. And one of the things that I really was impressed with, because I could never skate all that great, I could get around, but he really impressed me every time he played last year, how good a skater he is. And you might bring him in for some levity in the room, because as Vancouver gets closer to the playoffs,
hands tighten up on the sticks.
Yeah, things start to tighten up. I mean, right? But there's 2 things that's going to happen, and I think if they keep going like they are, that's going to happen. So they're trying to win the Pacific, right? Which gives them a wild card team, which it looks like, unless they have some kind of breakdown, they're in a really good position to do. But there's another part of this, the President's Trophy. And I know Tocchet doesn't care about that. He just wants his team playing as well as they can, which they've been phenomenal this year. They looked so good again, just wiped out the Blackhawks last night. But there's going to be the first place in the Pacific. Then there's going to be the President's Trophy. And so you're going to get a lot more eyes on you. Like I was at the end of the games last night. I was watching Sports Center down here, ESPN. Scott Van Pelt, old hockey fan, he did a segment. He goes, "We got to start talking about the Canucks." He goes, they're 76 points, first in the league, first in the Pacific. We got to start talking. And so you're going to start getting some attention that maybe that you haven't had in the organization for a number of years. So bringing in a guy like Phil Kessel, who's been there, done that. He's been under the bus. He's been on top of the bus. He's been
He had his
anywhere.
day with his cup in Toronto.
Yep. Yeah, he's eating hot dogs out of the cup at the golf course. So I think a guy like that's a really strong move. And really, if you look at what's happened in Vancouver, every move they've made has been just, you can't really, you just tip your hat and hope they keep doing it.
The reason I want to talk about that is there's a couple guys kind of floating like him, right? That still haven't signed with anybody. I'm trying to think who else the other guy was. Somebody else hadn't.
Well, you got Zach Parise, who just signed with Colorado, who was might have been looking for a specific fit, which he got in Colorado. Phil might have been doing the same thing in Vancouver. Hey, Phil, you want to come out to Ottawa, or do you want to come to say
no, it's to play, right?
No, yeah, or do you want to go to Chicago? Probably not, right? But hey, you want to go to Vancouver, and he will get some games in, and he might just be exactly what the doctor ordered. I don't want to say he's not a distraction, but he could be the kind of guy that could help guys as things start to
be more
mount.
of a diversion, though.
Yeah, that's a good word, right? So
not a distraction; he's a diversion.
Well,
does Edmonton go get a goalie still?
I think Calvin Pickard's, I watched him the other night. I don't know what else they want from him. Now they played Anaheim, and Anaheim gave them a real good run for their money for 2 periods, and then Edmonton turned it on. But Pickard had to make some, it's very Anaheim at this point, right?
Yeah.
Anaheim's got to work through some things. I think they're trying to work through what kind of team they want to become. I think Pat Verbeek has a very clear view of what they want to do. Even Aaron, we were talking to Aaron, right? He's the president of the club. They have a very clear view of what they want to do. It's going to take some time. It's not that easy. So anyways, getting back to Edmonton, I think Pickard has done a really good job. Okay, so who's out there for a goalie? Let's just say Marc-Andre Fleury comes in. Then you have that veteran to back up the young guy. But I mean, Skinner, he's looked great. The only question I would have in Edmonton is, they're going to be in a dogfight, looks like, with Vegas for second.
Mm-hmm.
And if LA ever gets going again, maybe they get into the mix. But the issue you have is how many games can you play Skinner, right? And so you're going to play really important games. I think I heard last night on the Edmonton telecast they played 34 games in the next 68 days. So that's not really good with math, but that's one every other day, right? So you
sure it is.
You're gonna. We're gonna go with it. We don't know, but yeah, they're probably looking for a D and a forward ahead of a goalie. But there's lots of teams out looking for goalies. I really like Skinner. The question is when do you give him a break, and how many games do you play him? Because
it's coming into your. You don't want to be too tired as you're going into the playoffs. And then you just.
They're going to play Vegas. They play Vegas and Vancouver once each more. I think they play Calgary, which is always a tough game. I think Winnipeg. They play Dallas and Winnipeg. Like they play those really good Central teams a few times.
Good too.
Yeah, so they play them. So they got some really tough games coming up. But Skinner can't play them all. So that's a good question. I'm not sure, but last night, what did McDavid get? 6 points. So maybe Ballard could go in and play for them. I mean, when you're scoring 8 goals,
he'll ride his bike to the rink and not make it to play.
That's right. Yeah.
Got to take him down. Yeah. I'm trying to think if anybody else who's really looking for a goalie right now.
New Jersey, Carolina.
But New Jersey's been looking for a goalie since September 26th, and they haven't really done anything. So I'm tired of hearing about them looking for a goalie. Are you looking for a goalie? Are you really? Like you're at the store and you're just staring at the shelf. Are you going to buy something or are you going to get off? I'm like, get out of the store. So, anyways,
Well, I heard
that
something yesterday I thought was interesting on that.
what?
Teams want to do something, but the salary cap is so restrictive on them because everyone's up against it. You'd look at some teams and go, well, they have money, but some teams are holding money. But your contenders are all up against the cap. I would say. I don't know.
Is that why
I
is that why you're seeing guys just get waived? What do they call it? Unceremoniously? What is it? Like unconditionally waived.
Yeah.
Unwaived. Was that why that's going on?
I think it's probably got something to do with it. There's two things at play here. I'll give you an example in Vegas. Braden Bahal, they waived him. They've got a logjam at defense. All he did is come in and just he's an NHL defenseman. He's gone into Calgary. Calgary picked him up. Well, there's two things. They obviously couldn't find a trade partner, but if you're tight on contracts, you're allowed up to 50 contracts. So they had to risk sending him to Henderson. Calgary picks him up. So they lose one of their young D, which they didn't want to lose, but they gain a contract. So so you know what I mean? So now I think they're at 48 contracts or maybe 49. So trying to do trades is tough because most of these teams not only are up against it against the cap, but they're up against it in the amount of contracts. So you're like, well, trade him for three guys. Well, if you're Vegas, say, and you trade, let's just use Braden Bahal as an example. Let's say you wanted to trade him for three guys. Well, if you trade Braden, right, and you get down to 48 contracts, well, you can't take all three of those guys back because it's going to give you 51.
So still going on, yeah.
So a team like Calgary is in a really good position because they're unloading guys and they got maybe a couple more deals to do. But in the meantime, they picked Pahal up for nothing. And he's greasy. He plays a heavy game. And he's going to get an opportunity in Calgary because, it was so log jammed here in Vegas with defensemen. He didn't get the chance. So I guess the long answer is you contracts and teams tight against the cap, being close to 50 contracts and being tight against the cap is causing issues. The cap's supposed to go up by 4 or 5 million next year. So now all of a sudden you still have your contract issue, but you have some more money.
Have some more space.
You got some more money, right, to give to move around with. So yeah, but that's it.
Harris is going to need $11 million to pay off something, so he's got to spend some money someplace.
He waived his no trade.
Yeah,
he waived his no trade to Nevada, Texas, and Florida, so he can
Phoenix.
recoup some of his money.
Yeah.
Arizona. Yeah. Just that Ovechkin's starting to score again. I think he scored in 5 or 6 in a row, which is good. And that's it. It's kind of a funny time of the season right now because we just had that All-Star break and teams were kind of in between.
Some are just coming off break right now. So
yeah, like Detroit's first game back off the break, I think was last night in Edmonton.
And they still look like they're on break.
Yeah, and so I don't know how you can do that properly.
No, it wasn't. Vancouver was their first game back from break.
Oh, that's right. And then they traveled out. Okay, so they didn't have any. But Edmonton was playing their fourth game coming out of the break, and they were playing their second. And Edmonton's looks really good, anyways. But this is where you're going to see in the next week, everyone's going to be back up to speed, and everyone's going to be playing. And Vegas kind of, didn't play their best game here the other night against Mini, and they were lamenting the fact. How about that? Lamenting the fact. Another word. I didn't even know where that came from. They were lamenting
down there,
the fact,
Mr. Tupper.
I don't. I passed Razor and I went right to Tupper, but they don't play till Saturday, and they were like, you could tell after the game they wish they could have gone back out on the ice and played that night. So all these guys are going to get their wish here. By the weekend, everyone will be back up to basically playing every other night, and away we'll go, and it'll be a sprint to the finish.
It's going to be an exciting time of year starting this Saturday. That's when it all comes together and everybody starts playing, and it's going to be, ooh, and then the playoffs. It's going to be exciting.
Hey,
Yeah.
do you have a story to tell before? Like we always say, we like to keep it light. Do you want to tell what you were doing the last couple of days? You're a big movie star now.
I was working on a show about magic. I was a guy that didn't know magic, and they would. Now I know a bunch about magic, and it's not as magical as it was before. But they brought a bunch of guests in, and one was from a show that we love, and it's called Absinthe, and she's part of a duo. How do they describe them?
The hottest brother and six, the hottest brother and sister act on the strip. The gazillionaire introduces them. We'll get a
This
plug in for Absinthe here.
We're gonna, yeah, because they need help. So this and she also does magic, and she's built like a ballerina, like just muscles everywhere. And yeah, it was the magic was that I shut up for 15 minutes and just had nothing to say. Uh,
You got to tell everybody the brother and sister act in Absinthe is the roller skaters.
roller
So
skaters. Yeah, we might want to put that in there.
so you're like, well, they're like the hottest brother and sister act. Like, what are you guys
But
talking about?
they do this roller skating act, which is it's they're on America's Got Talent a bunch. I think
Yeah,
they actually came close to winning it. It's just insane. They were at the Super Bowl. Usher had a roller skating party, and they were the big act at the roller skating party.
that's what I said. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh no, that's not them. I go, I think, I mean, I don't know. I guess there's a lot of roller skaters in Vegas, but my favorite part about the introduction to that act is they go the hottest brother and sister act in Vegas, and they get up on basically a kitchen table, a round kitchen table, and do
It's
this
insane.
roller skating. It's the coolest thing you've ever seen. But in Absinthe,
And
the
they're
people
wearing
sit.
basically a kitchen towel.
Yeah, they're that's it, and a face cloth, and so the stage at Absinthe literally is no more than what 3 or 4 feet away from the people, right? It's a
You're just waiting for teeth to become flying out from roller skate wheels, knocking them out, right? Because they come so
that's,
close to the people.
so the gazillionaire says, don't stand up unless you want to be kicked in the face. We got to go back when you.
We
Well,
gotta go
you're
back.
entertaining.
We
But
got.
anyways,
I'll explain. What all I can say about Absinthe is the first time I seen it, I felt I was so lazy. It was the most impressive show. It was funny. It was amazing. But it was, I just, as an entertainer, I was just like, oh, I got to put an effort into things. These people have got it going on. It was absolutely blew me away. And every comedian that I know that I like that sees it just goes, yeah, I just felt like my act was nothing after seeing that. So, because it was so funny, so offside, so pushing the boundaries without pushing the boundaries. It was amazing. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it makes fun of itself and it makes fun of you,
Yeah.
and you better laugh with them because they're laughing at you, right? So
Yeah.
laugh, and like the last time we were there, I got picked out of the crowd by the gazillionaire, right? And so you better laugh with them. You might be
Oh,
crying inside, but you
yeah.
better laugh because
Uh,
it's so it's so offside. But anyways, I'm glad you got with the roller skating act there. They are one of the greatest parts of Absinthe. There's so many of them, but our hockey podcast is now turned into
entertainment and hockey.
entertainment. So
You got any shout outs?
yeah,
I'll do mine
I'm
first.
gonna okay.
I'd like to shout out Travis Kelsey for actually helping Taylor Swift out because her career was nothing until he brought her on and helped her out. I think that's so funny. I'm just like, they make it seem like nobody from sports has ever dated a crazy popular person. I'm like Joe DiMaggio, and I was going to say Helen Keller
Oh jeez.
and Marilyn Monroe. Sorry. But that was them of the day, right? Like that was just crazy. Like people are like, oh, enough of her going to the games, whatever. But it's fun. People get jealous of other people having a great time. I listen to this show. I'll give the show. It's called it's Pinching My Salt. It's a surf show, and these guys are so funny. And they were talking about how we're basically crabs stuck in a box. Like, somebody will almost be out and the other one will pull them back down so nobody ever gets out. That's what humans are. And he goes, unless you die, he goes, people will talk shit about you, but as soon as you die, oh, he lit up a room. Oh, he would light. Pinch of salt is the podcast. Check it out. Oh, he
Oh,
lit.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so great. The little tongue in cheek there. But I'm glad we're back promoting other podcasts this week. That's kind of what we do. I'm gonna shout out. I don't know how I topped that shout out, but I did laugh at Kelsey singing "Viva Las Vegas."
Oh, yeah.
That was like, I mean, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't need to bump Andy Reid. I didn't like that. I don't think many people
It was
did,
it was a little weird.
he apologized for it, I think, in the last day or so. I get it. But come on, that guy's your dad. You don't bump your dad unless you want to slap. So at some point, Andy Reid's going to give him a real good slap.
At some point.
Yeah, he will. Hey, so I'm staying in Vegas because you shouted out. I'm going to stay with our old friend Mallard. Mallard was sick as a dog.
Oh,
and
no.
he did the game the other night. And supposedly it was on Sportsnet up in Canada because Mom saw it. And Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
gung hei fat choi. And he did a great job. He was sick as a dog. He looked good. And he grinded it out. He grinded it out. And we carve him a lot. We should probably carve him right now again. Him and his terrible glove hand. But he is the best. And so if you ever get a chance to watch a Vegas broadcast, tune in because Darren Millard is as good as it gets. So I hope he's feeling better because he's having a rough week. So
good for him. Well,
yep.
I'll come out. I'll be out there March 1st and 2nd. I'll bring him some chicken soup, make him feel better, which is weird to give to a Millard.
No, and a glove, maybe a glove for his
and a glove. That's awesome.
For his terrible glove hand, self-proclaimed. I still laugh. Okay, got to run.
He still doesn't have the stance of Jim Ralph.
No. You know what? Jim was hard to beat high left. Mallard's not.
Loved all.